Next, we go item number 4. It's on page 56. This is the Department of Commerce, Division of Public Railways. Colleton County and Public Railways are partnering in an economic development initiative to restore rail service to western Colleton County by purchasing and operating the assets of the Hampton and Branchville Railroad. Recognizing the importance of the rail line to economic development efforts in the area, Palmetto Railways has agreed to work with the county to acquire and operate the railroad. The property, the railroad originates in Hampton at a connection with the CSX line and runs to Kennedy's. In addition to other properties along the rail line, it serves the former SCE&G power generating station in Kennedy's, which is being marketed for economic development purposes. The property consists of 45.77 miles of rail line, 32.07 acres of land in 3 separate parcels, and 10 buildings. The cost of the acquisition is $6.5 million. The property has been appraised for $5.6 million in April of 2014. Colleton County Intermodal Corporation, which is a nonprofit corporation created by Colleton County, will provide a non-recourse loan to Palmetto Railways to finance the purchase of the property. The Intermodal Corporation will actually issue bonds of $7.5 million to cover the cost. The repayment of the loan will be made solely from the revenue generated from the operation of the railroad, specifically 10% of all gross revenues received by Palmetto Railways in connection with operation of the railroad, plus 25% of net income, if any. Then the Intermodal Corporation will use the funds received from Palmetto Railways to pay the debt service on the bonds. The term of the loan is 10 years beyond the revenue bonds, which if they're 20-year revenue bonds, it would be a 30-year loan. Colleton County has committed to satisfy the debt service if the revenue generated from the operation of the railroad is insufficient to cover the debt. If the county fails to satisfy the debt service, then Palmetto Railways could elect to pay the debt service, but they are not obligated to. If Palmetto Railways chooses not to pay the debt service, then the Intermodal Corporation could seize the property. But because the loan is non-recourse, their only recovery is limited to the collateral only. There are some environmental conditions that were identified during an assessment, and they have advised Palmetto Railways to enter into the voluntary cleanup contracts. The committee action is to review and make a recommendation regarding the acquisition of the assets by Palmetto Railways in accordance with the purchase and sale agreement and the financing pursuant to the loan and security agreement.
Mr. Limehouse.
Mr. Chairman, my question is for Secretary Hitt, and that would be, and I support the project. I was just curious, once we take over this line, who is going to pay to put in the gate, the arms? Because if we start using it and we get a customer, is Palmetto Railway going to pay for that, or is Colleton County? He answered my question. He said DOT's paying for all that.
Thank you very much, Representative.
That's the answer, right? Okay. So the improvements, whatever is necessary in that regard, is going to be from the DOT. Now, any paving or anything like that, they do that too. So the DOT they just voluntarily pay for that.
No, there's a program with regard to the signalization that you're asking about. And when the traffic data meets a certain threshold with the train traffic, then there's a program that funds the installation of those signals.
Okay. So, and second question, again, I'm supportive of this project because I think with the growth that's happening in that area, you're probably going to, you're acting prospectively. But what sort of a customer might we be looking for this short line?
Well, two things. First of all, this is Jeff McWhorter, who's president of Palmetto Railway, which is a division of Commerce. We have a customer going in that would pay us to store cars for them. There is a dearth of storage space for train cars that are idle. So we would have cash flow from that, number one. Number two, we have talked to a number of the property owners. We have a coalition of people willing to work with Commerce to help us develop sites along that track, starting with our friends at SCANA, who own an existing plant site. But it's difficult to market an industrial site unless you know whether you have rail. So we have been unable to do anything with that site so far. So this becomes a linchpin to being able to market that as an industrial site. In addition to that, our friends from the Power Team, which is the economic development arm of the co-ops, are interested in developing sites along the line, as are Colleton County, which is really the moving agent in this. When this railroad ceased in 2013, we looked at it from our point of view and did not believe that we could go in and simply buy out the assets. Colleton County then said, we think it's essential to our long-term economic development strategy. So if we come in and buy it, would you come in and operate it? That's how this conversation began. And our view from Commerce together with Railway is we will have a dearth of rail-served industrial properties in this state going forward, and we need to preserve these. If this rail were pulled out of Colleton County, there would essentially be no rail in Colleton County. So it is an opportunity for us to spend with the non-recourse loan 5 years to see that this is a developable property. If not, the railway can step away. The liquidation would continue, and the county would be made pretty much whole by what the liquidation value would be of the rail.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
My thought on this for the other committee members, I see this as an intra-county thing that they're doing there. The county's going to make the loan to purchase it, if I understand correctly. And if debt service is not paid, then the county takes it back over the railroad. Y'all can step away from it if it goes in default.
Correct.
I think this totally inside the county that's trying to do something for themselves, and I certainly approve of that. Any other comments or questions?
So, Mr. Chairman, you could never replace that rail once it comes out with the cost that they're purchasing it for.
Right.
I think you've got to preserve those assets where we can. I think I admire what Commerce is doing to step up to help development in that part of the world, because if you look at Jasper and Colleton and Hampton, we need jobs in that part of the world.
Sorry. I think it was just approved, Mr. Limehouse, I believe it was. We'll be happy to take a motion, though. I saw that on the floor of the Senate one time. He may not want that. I was getting ready to ask with any objections, so that might be the better way to go here. Okay. Are you going, Jeff? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I don't object, but I have a quick question. Bobby, do we have a similar situation in the state, similar rail question?
We probably have several of them, Senator. We've had one already in the eastern part of the state that I know the chairman's very familiar with, which we looked at. The county had a driving interest. And in that particular case, there was a private sector buyer who would come in. We have now been 3 years on this one. There's no private sector buyer because there's no business on the line. It's anticipated that we could build business on the line. In that particular case, private sectors come in, and there are some grants and other things being done by the Fed to try to restore that. There are several short line railroads in this state that will be coming up. And one of the things that I've discussed with some of the members here is that this now sets a predicate for what goes forward. So if a county feels strongly that the short line in their county is essential to their development, they have to participate in the outcome rather than simply coming to me as an administrative type or to you as elected officials saying, give me the money. This creates the right kind of business tension, I think, for success. So Colleton County has stepped up. But yes, sir, there are several more of these that I would not be surprised to see, maybe even in my time on the watch, because in this particular case, as is the case in the one in the eastern part of the state, the coal train business is tapering off in that coal-fired plants are closing down. And the coal train is like the anchor tenant for these railroads. Absent that, they simply can't make a living. And so you're going to see these lines starting to deteriorate and go away. And by the way, there's a lot of tension in the whole railroad business because the coal trains are the highest margin business for the railroads. Next is intermodal, which, as you know, we're working very hard on in this state. I believe from my position right now that we must do everything we can to preserve this vital infrastructure in the state where it's business and where it's viable with a business plan. I believe this is an opportunity for us to explore and demonstrate that a business plan can be built. We're going to need rail very much going forward in this state, and we, of course, are investing a great deal between our port and our intermodal rail yard to make rail an essential part of our manufacturing and distribution culture. So I think it's important that we try this, and I think this has been a great job done by the county and by Jeff's team and our team at Commerce to come up with an idea that does not put the state at risk, but gives us an opportunity to demonstrate the business worthiness of this rail line. We'll have others. And now we will set a predicate for what the counties have to do in order for us to do it. That would be my suggestion to you.
One last question. Mr. Chairman, the owner of the railway now, have they owned it for quite some time?
1891, I believe.
Yes, sir.
I think that's quite some time.
I think it's
How about that,
depreciated.
Mr. Chairman? Is that?
Pretty good sometime, yeah. Okay. In accordance with our procedures, the items are presented to the committee, read by staff. Members have all the comments they want. Any questions they have, they're responded to. And with that, are there any objections
Mr. Chairman,
to this?
one quick comment. What I kind of think I have observed, this is just kind of homemade and in business, is the railroad, at least in Spartanburg and Anderson, is the backbone of the fish. And I have found if you locate in proximity to that railroad, remarkable things happen.
Any objection to this then and approved as read? Dan, next one.
Okay, next we move on to the
Thank you.
normal permanent improvement project.